Hello guys, end of the Russian war in Ukraine also means the end of Putin in Russia. And he knows that. I think this is one of the top nightmares that the pathetic Botox Kremlin dictator experiences every night in his bunkers. He clearly understands that thousands and thousands of those wounded, violent, criminal soldiers that will return to miserable Russian regions are a threat to his regime, together with the collapsing economy, with the failed blitzkrieg and some cracks in the ideology. And that is one of many reasons why no peace deal is possible. As a Ukrainian, I do know that any agreement signed with Russia is not worth the paper on which it was signed. But there are other reasons why Putin will desperately continue this war. And he already loses his comrades. According to the confirmed data, Kadyrov, and I know many of you are afraid that Kadyrov can get access to nuclear weapons if Russia collapses, but it seems like Kadyrov collapses before the Russian Federation. So let's discuss what is happening right now in Russia as the talks about the peace deal continue and why it is deadly for the 25 years of Putin's reign and 30 years of Kadyrov's regime. And not from just my subjective Ukrainian perspective, but also according to the newspapers like Bild. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, actually the only working peace plan, subscribe, we discuss all of that on the channel. So, no war, no Putin. Please do not equate this phrase to Putin's war and so on. This is war of millions and millions and millions of Russians and North Koreans and Chinese and Iranians and other bad people that support violence, bullying and genocide. But for Putin's regime stability, this war is vital. First of all, because all of his plans failed. They failed, no matter how much his new PR White House office works, no matter how much Russian propagandists lie, he failed blitzkrieg. Okay, let's do it as these horror stories, but these are horror stories from the Kremlin, so I'm sure you will enjoy that. Let's just count how many things failed in Putin's vision of his invasion of Ukraine, control over the world, and so on and so forth. First of all, his blitzkrieg failed. Let's be realistic, no one in the Kremlin expected that their 3-day blitzkrieg would last 3 and more years, with now Ukrainian troops controlling parts of Belgorod, Kursk region, and Putin terrified of Ukrainian fireworks during their parade in Moscow. Then this long war is super exhausting, but they also failed to achieve the aims they said, like to demilitarize Ukraine. I'm sorry, but it seems like you've militarized Ukraine and now we demilitarize Russia. I like it. So failed blitzkrieg, failed to achieve the aims. And by the way, the whole world now knows about Ukraine and knows that Ukraine is very different from Russia. We have our community that has already achieved a lot and many millions of other examples. Then, of course, the collapsing Russian economy. They keep pretending that everything is fine, but they also keep rising. Interest rates, they try to hide inflation, they manipulate a budget, they take away money from banks secretly and spend them into the war effort, but everything is on the brink of the collapse. Please also remember that oil prices keep dropping. And since recently, Saudis do not mind this fact, and it all resembles the context of the end of 80s, the beginning of 90s in the USSR, and you all know that it was just before the collapse of that Frankenstein. Please remember to subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine and share these videos if you share my opinion. Then, and that is perhaps the greatest threat. These are thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands already of the wounded, violent Russian soldiers who will return back home. These soldiers often come from very poor, very distant, miserable Russian regions. Because, come on, well off, even bad, but well off soldiers will not steal your used sneakers. Let's be realistic, that is the face of the Russian army, hungry, dirty, and excited that they can send some bloody sneakers to their children. Can you imagine something similar done by your soldiers? Never, because that's the part of your country's image. And that is what Russian culture is. And also, we observe that these soldiers now earn money. You obviously understand that in Ukraine, our soldiers are defenders that defend the motherland, protect schools, hospitals, stand for the future of my country. And in Russia, these are looters, rapers, murderers, but all of them want money. Money is their engine. So they earn this money, and if they stop earning the money and they return back to their villages, to their vodka, how will they feel? They can cause a lot of troubles. Plus, remember that many of them come from prisons. Most of Prigozhin's army was made of prisoners. Prigozhin himself had a long experience in prison. That's kind of a virtue in Russia. So all of that together brings hundreds of thousands of very dangerous people inside very dangerous, pathetic, miserable regions of Russia. Plus multiply by millions now who work in the military industry. They earn their money. And before that, they did not have where to earn money. And can you imagine what kind of context, what kind of environment that will create in already pretty violent Russian Federation? And these people are wounded, these people are with bad experiences, these people are with PTSD, and of course no one is going to work with them. No one is going to try and rehabilitate them as we do in Ukraine. So this will be an extremely strong stress and problem even for a normal country, and for Russia and Putin's regime that can be deadly. And Putin knows that. He knows that the moment he loses this war, because he cannot win this war, he also loses control over the Kremlin. And some of his bloody friends will try to shake the throne, will try to change something, will pretend that they are good Russians when there are none, literally. And in this context, we'll learn about Kadyrov that wants to resign. I think that's a too posh word to speak about Kadyrov. There were rumors that he has serious problems with his health. No wonder with his lifestyle, but he is not old. He's just like a boss of Chechnya, a traitor of his people, because Chechnya had a great potential to become independent, and they fought fiercely for that. And they actually won First Chechen War in the 90s. It is just Russian violence that destroyed the country, and then they found 18-year-old or something like that, Kadyrov, who rules this country for 30 years. That is insane. And now he will perhaps try to leave an heir, his son or his daughter, which is not normal for a country that did not have a history of monarchy, something like that. And I know how many of you, when we talk about the future inevitable dissolution of the Russian Federation, are worried that like Kadyrov will get access to nuclear weapons. That is dangerous. Well, first of all, I do have this question. How come you are not worried that Putin controls nuclear weapons right now? But even if you have your reasons, please understand Kadyrov is gone. And the moment Putin is gone, all that house of cards collapses. this is an extremely weak regime, just as Russian ruble. Do you store your funds, your assets in rubles? The same is about Putin. It will all collapse really quickly. I wonder why did Kadyrov decide to do it? Health issues, or he's afraid of something, or Putin made him? We will see. But recently there was a huge interview of Putin celebrating 25 years of his reign, real dictatorship. And it was so absurd for me to hear Trump encouraging elections in Ukraine when people are not for that. You know, Ukrainians are pretty freedom loving. And if we had any issue, if we had any desire, we would definitely try and, you know, change something. We don't want elections, and we have Zelensky during this martial time and one term, and Putin 25 years, and there were no questions to Putin, you know. He is a classical dictator, but what do you know about classical dictators? Their regimes collapse very quickly, just like one of Assad. It happens during one beautiful night. I would like to ask you, how do you think Putin regimes will end? But YouTube is too sensitive, and these comments will disappear, and I don't want that. So let me know in the comments below, how long do you think Putin has left? Thank you so much for all the support that I hear. I read all of your comments, and remember to check my new video about the scariest and the happiest moments I've experienced so far during this full-scale invasion on my new channel, where I share more personal, more psychotherapeutic point of view and my experience. Join me on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, and Instagram. Check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine, and they are simply cute. And thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons. That's an honor. But most importantly, thank you for being friends of mine and friends of Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!